Hey, what's up, guys? Making another video, another tournament report today, and yeah, I kind of give you my results here. Each and almost every week, I go out to one tournament or so um, when I got the time. And since getting my car fixed, I'm able to head out to more tournaments lately and being able to kind of play, which is kind of nice. Um, yeah, so I'm able to kind of regularly bring these updates and if you're interested in seeing how I'm doing with the deck, any sort of interesting meta calls, any interesting, you know, stuff I ran into, I'll kind of let you guys know. But yeah, so this week, I went to another tournament, and yeah, it was a pretty decent tournament for me in terms of just the way the deck worked this week and my matchups and how well I placed. So it was a sizable tournament, I guess, for being a local on a Monday. We had I think a total of 20 people today, which is not bad. It's a pretty decent turnout. Almost at 24. If we had 24, we probably would have went into like 5 rounds or something like that. That would have been quite a lot. But yeah, we had 4 rounds today. Um, and yeah, 4 rounds again, and I went essentially undefeated, which is kind of nice. So I placed, I think, second or first or second. The last round, me and my opponent, we decided to just go ahead and split the winnings, and so then we didn't really play the last match. We just drew and call it a day. But my first 3 matches were really good. So this is coming from the last update about the deck and changes I made to the mana base and some changes I made to the cards and stuff like that. So minor changes, but I think those changes really did kind of help me this week in terms of piloting the deck and worked out pretty well. So yeah, let me go ahead and kind of patch you guys in. So let me go ahead and start off with um, the decks that I played against, and then how well I did against them. Then we'll talk a little bit about siding, and hopefully conclude that video in a timely manner. So 4 rounds. Game one, I played against Rakdos Midrange, Rakdos, I guess you can call it. Um, and then game two, I played against Green Black Elves. Is that Sultai? I think that's Sultai. But Sultai Elves. And then game three, I played against Boros Burn. And in the last game, I would have played against Amulet Titan, but we split the last round, so we ended up not playing the fourth round. So yeah, I 2-0 every single match today, which was nice. Which is kind of surprising though, because I did play against 3 decks that were very aggro. Like you got Rakdos, which they were playing Ragavans, Torok, the Kroxa, the good stuff, the Rakdos good stuff. And then game two was against Elves, Green Black Elves, which was like they flood the board. They have a bunch of lures, and then they attack you for a lot. And I was able to beat that, and then obviously Rakdos Burn, which was also a very aggro deck, had a lot of burn, and ways to close out the game pretty quickly in a couple of turns. But I also beat that, so I want to say I played pretty well today, and um, played the control deck pretty well. I wasn't expecting to face any other control. Maybe 4-color control was the other match that I could have played against for the third or fourth match, but we ended up not getting paired against each other. So I missed my chance to try to practice against 4-color elementals, but that's fine. I had some practice before against them, and um, had usually pretty decent results. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into kind of the overview of the match, of the games, and then some cyborging, and yeah. So game one is against like I said, Rakdos, and I think game one went pretty well for me. I was able to kind of just out get go kind of control the board. He did Ragavan me on turn one, and it hit me twice with Ragavan, so he did start gaining some advantage with it, but I eventually got rid of the Ragavan, and it looked like he kind of more or less didn't really have too much steam in his hand. I think he had a lot of like bolts, like lightning bolts and stuff like that, which wasn't particularly useful because I didn't really have a board at that point. I had a bunch of like removal and counter spells, so that was kind of not doing too much. But um, I think he goes for the new um, the new black land from Kamigawa, where he mills 3 and then adds a card back. He ends up adding Ragavan, and he tries to dash Ragavan, but I think I alley whirled him, or I think I Kaz Guiled him, and so it went back and forth a little bit, but I am maintaining control. I think I end up getting like Snapcasters and resolving Teferi and stuff like that. And so game one, I think he couldn't close out the game or couldn't draw enough steam, and so yeah, game one went to me. So um, I thought that wasn't a game one. Didn't really tell me too much about his deck, so I didn't get to really see too much. But game three was or game two, sorry, was definitely interesting. Let's talk about what I sided in, and then yeah, go from there. So I didn't side in Rest in Peace because I did not see Croxos or anything game one, so I didn't side in Rest in Peace. But I did put in Marches, and I think I put these 3 in, and maybe Kaya's, and I think that's about it, honestly. So I sided this in. This was because the only card I saw that was a threat was Ragavan the entire time. And so I put this in, and obviously, if they're playing black, I assume they Rakdos, they probably have a Croxo somewhere. But the only reason I didn't put in Rest in Peace because I wasn't 100% sure. Plus, I like having my Snapcasters in this particular matchup to kind of block Ragavans and get some additional value. So I wasn't too keen on putting in the Rest in Peace yet until I saw more of his deck. And if he was playing Unholy Heats or Darcy, then I think for sure Rest in Peace would have went in. But I didn't see Darcy. I didn't see Unholy Heats or anything like that. So I assuming maybe he was gonna bring in Turok or maybe more Croxas and stuff like that. So this is what I put in. And then this is for like against Croxa, Ragavan, Lightning Bolt, stuff like that. It wasn't too useful against Turok, but a lot of these cards aren't that great against Turok, but that's fine. So the most interesting thing that came out of game two is that he did play Seasoned Pyromancer, which he was in top decking mode, and I guess I was top decking too because he did, I think, Inquisition me. I had a mulligan. He went first. I had a mulligan down to 6, and he goes first, and then he Inquisitions me. So I'm already down a bunch of cards and stuff like that. Um, the most interesting part was I had like a weird hand where I had Kai's Guile, Archmage Charm, and like an Op or something like that. Or no, not Archmage Charm. I had Kai's Guile, and we were kind of top decking at this point. I had Kai's Guile and an Opt, and an Aether Gus, and 5 mana. But it was weird because my mana wasn't allowing me to be able to do what I wanted to do. So he cast a Turok for kicker, and so he's 4 mana. I'm at I think 4 mana, 4 or 5 mana. But it was weird. So I only had like I think 3 sources of blue. So I go opt in response to him casting it, trying to see if I can draw a counter spell. So I get a land. So I tuck the land down the bottom of the deck and I draw Archmage Charm. But at this point, I only have 2 blue open and I don't have a third mana for Archmage. And I looked at his graveyard. He does have Croxa in there already. I think he Croxas me turn 2. So what I end up just doing is let the Turok hit the board and respond to its discarding trigger with Kai's Guile. I ended up losing both these cards, but what I did is I forced him to sacrifice his Turok and exile the grave. So I think that bought me some time there for me to kind of be able to climb back into the game, because that was kind of weird. That was kind of a weird point in the game because we were just kind of both top decking. But in the end, he ended up top decking a seasoned pyromancer. He goes seasoned pyromancer into another seasoned pyromancer into another Turok, and so like we had a lot of mana, but we were both kind of top decking. What kept me in the game was honestly the Emperor. I was able to grab down. I was able to slam down the Emperor and start like just making tokens and stuff with that. And he was kind of low on health because I was kind of smacking him a bunch of times with the Emperor tokens. And so I think he was down to maybe 5, 6 life left. But he had a board now. He had Turok, 2 Seasons Pyromancer, and a token that he made off of the Turok. But I had a Celestial Colonnade. I had a couple of Emperor tokens, stuff like that, and I had a bunch of removal spells. Now my removal spells was Prismatic Ending, and I think March, and so I couldn't remove his Turok. There's nothing I could have done to remove his Turok. I think I also had like a 3 mana Teferi on board too, which did nothing to answer his Turok. So what I did is I ended up I think I had enough mana to Islay Warrior March and to Prismatic Ending his two seasoned Pyromancers to kind of just get them off the board and make sure that they don't go to the grave um, and be annoying later. So I just did that and just applied pressure to his health. And I think that's essentially how I won. Is that even though I couldn't deal with Turok with what I had in my hand, I was able to kind of swing in the air. I think I eventually drew an Archmage Charm, which I stole something from him. I think I stole a either a Ragavan or I stole something. I forgot exactly what I stole with it, but I was able to just kind of apply pressure for the later half of the game and essentially not let him kind of do anything at all because he was not able to, um, you know, apply enough pressure for me to cave in. I think I had like 14 health or something, so I was more or less able to just take hits left and right, and he had to kind of leave Turok to kind of block the tokens and he had to block stuff that I was kind of sending it at him into his face the entire time. So yeah, game 2 went to me, and yeah, that was I would say a fairly good game for me. So 2-all to him. Game or the next round, I guess. Next round I play against Elves. Our first game was pretty grindy. We kind of went back and forth quite a few times, but once again, I was able to get out the Emperor and start producing tokens with her, and it was really good. I was able to block a bunch of stuff. I was able to kind of just apply pressure where you wouldn't think you'd be able to apply pressure to, which was kind of nice. And yeah, that was unexpected. I was able to kind of block his elves, even though he had stuff to kind of pump him bigger and make him bigger. He just couldn't get rid of the Emperor that easily. I had stuff to back her up with. I had marches. I had worlds. Yeah, I had marches and prismatic endings. Sorry, and that was able to kind of keep the Emperor alive and just produce tokens and bodies for me on the board, while he was eventually kind of just running out of steam. And yeah, that worked out pretty well for me. So game 1, eventually I just had enough stuff on the board, and just kept his stuff to a very minimal board presence, and won off of one game 1 that way. In terms of game 2, for sideboarding, I think what I put in was more marches for sure, Aether Gusses for sure, and I didn't do Kaya's because I don't think that was just gonna be super handy. So I think I did something like this, just because I didn't really have much else to throw in. Now Void Ren is an interesting choice. Like Void Ren is mainly going to be used to kill his 3 mana Elder Druid and stuff like that. Stuff that I kind of want to get rid of. It's not the greatest card for sure. Like you don't really need it per se, but I think I just took out some stuff that I thought was slow. I took out Jace. I took out a couple of ops. I took out counter spell, 1 or 2 counter spells. I think I took out Teferi too also. Just stuff that I thought that wasn't gonna really answer his board, and plus he was definitely playing a Cavern of Souls deck, so it's not like I'm gonna get that much opportunity to counterspell something. So I ended up just taking out counterspell, so less of a dead card, and I just needed more removal because his entire threat presence is on the board. Like you don't really need counterspells that much against this particular matchup. Like you don't really want to use counterspell to kill a 1/1 elf. If they already have a board presence, that's not gonna really do anything to save you. So you gotta have removal. So um, game two, I guess he kept this sort of greedy hand because he only had one land. Like at the end of the game, we talked about it. He had one land. He was trying to flood the board. He was gonna go Cavern of Souls into a Land of War elf, into the guy that makes a 1/1 token every time an elf comes in. I forgot his name. It's a 2/2 2 green elf guy. If you know its name, just let me know. I totally forgot. I'm blanking out right now. But um, so I had a bunch of Aether Gusts in hand, and I know he was kind of stuck on mana, and so because I think he passed turn. All he had was just the elf and the Cavern of Souls plus that guy. So next turn he casts the same one. He casts another 2/2 guy, and I Aether Gust him, and so he puts it on top of his deck. Okay, so now I know, and he passed his turn. So now I know he's kind of strapped for lands. He doesn't really have any lands outside of the Cavern of Souls and the elf. My turn comes around. Now I had another Aether Gust, and I had a Prismatic Ending. And what I did was I Prismatic Ending the elf, and I just passed turn. So his turn, I forgot what he does. I think he just tries to cast another like 1/1 elf reclaimer or something like that. Didn't matter. I just either gust it or whatever, just to kind of lock him into him playing that. And so he kept trying to smack me with the 2/2, so I let that through. Eventually, I think he was able to kind of break parity and grab another land. And he goes land to another elf into, you know, so he's starting to build his board presence. So he has two. He ended up getting like two of the elf that makes the tokens. I let that purposely happen because I was like thinking I was gonna run out of cards to play because he had a pretty big hand. He wasn't really casting too many things. I was kind of just stunning him with the Aether Gust, stalling him for a couple of turns because my hand wasn't that great either. I think I had a mulligan down to 6, so I was technically behind a card and behind a mana. And so I was just like, okay, I'm gonna let him build his board up because I do have a dam in hand. So I ended up damming, I think, two of those elves plus the Land of War elves, and that set the game back again, back to kind of a slower pace. And from there, essentially we kind of went back and forth. He was trying to build his board presence out again, and I think I eventually, I think he ends up thought seizing me. And it was a really good thought seize. I wasn't expecting that thought seize, but he thought seized me. He gets rid of my Solitude, which was my only threat in my hand. I had a counter spell, Solitude, and like a land or something like that. And obviously he has Cavern of Souls, so my counter spell was pretty much dead. So he thought seizes me. The turn after, I draw into the Emperor, and I think that kind of flipped the game around again. I was able to slap down the Emperor, block his tokens, exile stuff, and yeah, she kind of just kept him in check. Enough. She bought me enough time that I was able to restabilize with a decent hand. I started drawing a bunch of Archmage Charms, which I kept casting to keep drawing two more cards, drawing Snapcasters, and eventually I kind of just overwhelmed him. He ends up just being stuck on like 2 or 3 lands, and not really being able to kind of swarm the board like he wanted to. And I was able to kind of keep his board in check with the dam and the Emperor, and so that worked out for me, and I ended up taking that game. So yeah, so that was a pretty good 2-0 for me on that end. Now game 3, played against Boros Burn, and at this point I'm pretty familiar with the matchups. Like I kind of know what most of their decks do. Granted, there's a couple cards they do change in and out depending on the player. Game 1, back and forth. I kind of misplayed because I think when he had open mana, I tried to be really greedy. He ended his turn with open mana, and so I just go Kai's Guile to try to heal and make a token. He plays a card that shoots you for 3 and doesn't let you heal that turn. I'm drawing blanks right now on the card name. I should know it, but I played right into that, so he doesn't let me heal and he hits me for like 3. So I was like, oh shoot, now I'm kind of like down on health and a little bit in a sort of a stickier situation, but I ended up drawing another Kai's Guile, which was nice. So we played it back and forth. I ended up resolving their Kazgael to heal up 4. So I was sitting around like 8 health, and I was kind of he wasn't able to really finish me off at that point. I just was able to start building some board presence, and then I was able to kind of apply pressure while he was down to like maybe 3 lands plus like 1 or 2 cards in hand, and nothing he could have done to really close out the game at that point, where I was just starting to generate advantage and controlling the board with some monster presence or some creature presence, while having like a 3 or 4 card hand with like a couple counter spells. So I was able to stabilize, and he gave me the win. Game 2, we sideboard in. So in terms of sideboarding, it was kind of difficult, honestly. I wasn't too sure how the sideboard again. 'Cause then again, I changed my deck a little bit. So I think this is what I sideboarded in, and that was the main thing. So, sorry, here you go. Sideboard, I think 6 cards in. Yeah, 6 or 7 cards in. So, Aether Gust definitely. You just want to. It acts as removal, acts as counter spells for the entire deck. So Aether Gust for sure. I think I wanted this to heal up, buy me some time. Yeah, now, Kai's Guile, when using against a Boros Burn deck, you have to be very careful of when you activate this thing. If they have something like a rolling vortex or whatever, I forgot the name, the enchantment, or they have that burn spell that doesn't let you heal, you gotta be careful with that. So that was the only caveat of playing Kai's Guile, is that they can outplay you if you're not careful with that, or if you don't have like a Teferi on board. So yeah, careful with that. March for extra easy, 1 mana removal. He had a bunch of Swiftfoot Spears, which I saw game 1. He had Goblin Guide. He had Eidolons, stuff like that. So I imagine Swift is gonna be good. Same thing with Dam. Dam is just to get rid of Eidolon, without taking 2 damage. You pay the 4 to just board wipe, stuff like that. In terms of what I took out, I think I took out Jace. I took out all the ops, because you don't want to play ops against Eidolon. That is, this is the worst card you can play against an Eidolon deck. So you're gonna burn yourself for 2, bolt yourself for, or shock yourself for 2 every time if you do that. So took all this out. Took out Jace because he was too slow. I took out a big 5 mana Teferi for sure, and I think I took out one more card. I don't quite remember what other card I took out. Maybe maybe a Teferi or one of my other Planeswalker. I don't remember. I don't. But anyways, game 2, he does his stuff, gets out Eidolon, stuff like that. Once again though, before he was able to completely officially stabilize, I was able to get out the Emperor plus like a spirit token and stuff like that. At one point, he had to use his Boros charm to give his creatures indestructible, because I was just kind of blocking him with the Emperor tokens, and yeah, he had to kind of do that to kind of get rid of my tokens. But I was able to draw Archmage's Charm. I stole his Goblin Guide. I started making more tokens with the Emperor. Eventually, he had to bolt the Emperor, and I think I drew up another Emperor. And yeah, it was just kind of those games where the control player was trying to control my board more than he was trying to hit me for my health. So at that point, sorry, not the control player, the burn player was trying to control my board more than anything else. So at that point, you kind of know that the match is in your bag, because at one point he was down to 1 card. I had 6 cards in hand. Snapcaster. I had like 6 or 7 mana open, and at this point he calls it quits, because he knows unless he can get like triple Boros Charm and I didn't have anything left in my hand or something like that, no counter spells or no Kai's Guile, he was no way gonna burn through. I think I had like 9 life or something like that, 9 or more or less around that much. So he ends up just giving me the game, just because he asked how many cards I had in my hand. I had I said I had like 6 cards to his like 1 or 2 cards in his hand, and he's just like, okay, I think that's pretty much the game. But yeah, the Emperor definitely put in a lot more work today than usual. I guess it's because I played against a bunch of creature aggro deck, and she's just anti-creature deck. Like, she's one of the best cards you can do if you're playing against a very heavy creature meta, and even against other control. She's really good against other control because she starts building bodies, and she's she can also flash herself in. And against other control decks, they have a very difficult time removing her. The only way they can really remove her is either by attacking over her with like a Celestial Colonnade or whatever creatures they have, or they need like a Prismatic Ending on 4. Then that's the only real good way to get rid of her. But yeah, her 2/2 tokens, her +1s, they were all relevant. I don't think I ever -2 with her today at all. I made a bunch of 2/2 samurais and kind of buff them up with the +1, or I kept making more bodies. Like every turn, I was just either making a body or buffing up a Snapcaster, buffing up my samurai, giving them first strike, applying pressure, able to kind of swing with the samurai. Well, since they have vigilance, I was able to kind of leave them up as blockers. So I was essentially applying a lot of pressures with the Emperor, and I thought she more or less paid for herself, at least within the last 3 matches that I played, and definitely worth a keep. I think if you're playing against a lot of things. I think the only time she's really not that great is against like maybe a control deck that just doesn't really have any creatures, or is just kind of holding up their mana all the time, every time, like a Reclaimer deck. I think Reclaimer was the only other control deck I had a lot of difficult time with. It was my mistake. I didn't really know how to play against them, but at the same time, Reclaimer is just such a good card when they have more mana available to them than you do. You won't be able to ever really beat them in a counterspell war. So yeah, other than that, the only time I didn't like the Emperor was maybe it was against like a creature deck that was just really big, or maybe it was like or I guess if they swarmed the board a lot and you just didn't have a way to deal with the board in the before getting to turn 4, then that's the time where she becomes a lot less powerful. Is if she can only make 1 token and they're swinging at you with like 5 creatures or something like that, you're pretty much done. The Emperor's not going to solve your problem. But if you're able to kind of keep their creatures down to a minimum, maybe 1 or 2 creatures, and you start able to produce creatures of your own, tokens of your own, then that's when she becomes invaluable. Like she will outgrind your opponent. She will build a board presence for you, and at the same time you can attack with the tokens without needing to feel like you don't have a blocker open, because the tokens do have vigilance, which is actually kind of important, because you're able to swing in for free damage if they don't block it. Cool, you have a blocker up, and they're free bodies. So that's the best thing about her tokens. The 2/2 samurais, they were just invaluable. A lot of creatures nowadays they're mostly got 1 or 2 health. Being like Ragavan's a 2/1. Eidolon's a 2/2. Swiftfoot's, I guess, can be easily a 3/4 or something like that. But for the most part, most creatures that you're going to run across in the early parts of the game are going to be really small. And she does a wonderful job at kind of trading off tokens, trading off stuff like that. And if they do become like a huge issue, then you can slap her down and exile them. Now that I think about it, the only match I thought she was mediocre in was maybe against the Amulet Titan deck. Maybe because, she can only kill creatures that are tapped. Amulet Titan, when it attacks, it starts to trigger the ability already. And so she's really too late for that. Like, if they get the ability trigger off of Titan, they're most likely to win the game, or at least get really ahead. And that's the only time she felt really bad, is that you have to let Titan attack in order to be tapped, and then you can -2 to kill the Titan. That's the only possible situation where I thought she was kind of bad. Or if another person is playing the Emperor and what you have is the Emperor, you're going to be like a turn or 2 behind their Emperor, and that's what's going to feel a little worse, is that they're getting more value out of their Emperor than you are. So against like other control decks that are playing the Emperor, or like a Titan deck, or maybe like a Tron deck, where yes, you can kill an Ulamog, yes, you can kill like an Emrakul or whatever, but you have to let them swing first, and sometimes you don't want them to swing. Like with a Emrakul, when they swing, they exile 20 cards of your deck, which you don't want to happen. If for some reason you're playing against if you're in Legacy or something like that, and you play against Show and Tell or something like that, and they get Emrakul out and they swing at you Annihilator 6, Annihilator 4, and you have the Emperor. That's when she just feels awful because it's like you have to let them turn sideways before you can get rid of them, which at that time it's really kind of too late. And so yeah, that's the only time I thought she was just not that great. Other than that, the card that overperformed for me was probably still going to be the Marches. I want to give credit to. Um, I'm hesitant to about playing 3 copies or 4 copies in your deck because they are a bit expensive to cast during the early stage of the game. Early stage of the game, you want to be casting Prismatic Ending anyways. Later part of the stage of the game, it's where I think March does really good job. The only other time you're casting March is you're playing against Ragavan and you need to get rid of Ragavan. That's when March is going to come in handy. But yeah, overall, the cards I thought were going to put in the most work today were either Marches or Aethergus. So definitely the all star of my experience was those 2 cards. Kind of working in tandem. My least favorite card was actually Counterspell. Like I don't recall me countering anything worth it today. Honestly, they all had either um, a a Cavern of Souls, or they weren't really casting anything worth countering. All the creatures that are playing were like 1 or 2 mana, or I just didn't have the mana to cast Counterspell. But in either case, I thought Counterspell was probably my least favorite card today. Ironically, Archmage Charm performed really well against Boros Burn. Even against Elves, I was able to just kind of start stealing some of their pieces of their board, and that was kind of I want to say pretty pretty good factor in how I kind of won. Is that um, the other sorry, I'm actually not too sure where I'm going with this train of thought. My bad here, but yeah, in the sense, just overall, my 3 matches I did play, I felt really well. Like the changes I made to the deck were like with the mana base, and I think it smoothed in really well. I never needed the 4th color. I had the steam vents, for the 4th color, but I never needed the 4th color today. So I think in the future, I think I am gonna keep the mana base like this is. I'm gonna keep having the first turn mana to be most likely gonna be the Trinome Esper, and then just follow up with that with whatever colors I need. If I need like double black, maybe I'll grab a swamp or um, grab a watered graves or something like that. Or if I need like double white, whatever reason is, the Esper Triland worked really well because I was able to kind of just get it off immediately and have all the colors that I needed available for the most part, casting cards in my hand. So yeah, I think that is the way to go. Is just go for Esper Triland rather than the Jeskai Triland, and yeah, that worked really well for me. Anyways, I think that's all I got for you. I think I kind of went on long enough, and but yeah, if you guys have any other questions, comments, suggestions, yeah, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and yeah, I'll continue to provide some updates for the deck, and hopefully eventually I'll be able to play this on Magic Online, but the cost is kind of prohibitive. Even with a renting service, I don't think I would be able to build the deck I want to build in Magic Online, and so for now, I think I'm just gonna stick this deck on paper for now, and then play Azurus or something like that on my Arena account since I have all the cards for that particular deck. But yeah, in terms of building another modern deck, I don't know yet. I already spent kind of a bit of money on this deck, and I want to be able to just play this deck, get my values worth, plus kind of becoming a bit of control player. In the sense, this deck already does what I want it to do. It does kind of checks all the boxes that I want it to do, and that's why I've been playing this deck for so long. It's just that I just like what it does. I like the idea of where it goes. I can make incremental small changes without having to dramatically change out the card selections in the deck, and yeah, so I'll stick with this for a bit longer. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you guys next time.